Not much to say for this opening segment, but with the sequel coming out soon, here's my review of Ni no Kuni, Wrath of the White Witch. Most people bought a PS3 for Uncharted. For me, that was actually this game. Level 5 had a big impact on my gaming life thanks to Professor Layton and Inazuma 11, and I also love Studio Ghibli. So the idea of both studios collaborating was amazing to me, and it introduced me to a whole other world of gaming that wasn't Nintendo. So for that, this game is already special to me, but is it actually good? Well, as is tradition, let's look at the story first. It begins in the town of Motorville, and yes, that is actually the town's name, where we meet our main character, a young boy named Oliver. After his mother tragically dies, he brings a homemade doll to life with his tears. The doll reveals himself to be a fairy named Drippy, who comes from another world where an evil wizard named Shadar is causing havoc and seems to have caused the death of Oliver's mother. Drippy reckons that Oliver is the one prophesied to save their world, so the pair head over to the other world to not only stop Shadar, but also save Oliver's mother. Along the way, they meet many characters and learn the magic necessary to save the world. That is a wonderful premise, and it doesn't disappoint when it comes to its execution either. Though Studio Ghibli didn't have any real involvement in the story, it honestly feels like they did. This is a very exciting, funny, emotional, and charming adventure, and the main character is one of the biggest reasons it works as well as it does. Oliver is a character who the player can easily identify with. We can connect with his struggle and join him for this adventure entering another world he knows little about. But most of all, he's a lead who you get to see evolve from the helpless kid who only agrees to go on the adventure to save his mother and has to constantly ask Drippy for help, to a selfless hero who knows what to do at all times. It's all done very subtly as well, making for a truly compelling lead. But that's not to say that the supporting cast aren't likeable as well. Drippy is an awesome companion to learn the ropes with. Esra and Swain are great allies who bring something new to the group, and there's a wide ensemble of side characters who are all memorable in their own way. Except for one. Even though the game is subtitled Wrath of the White Witch, you might have noticed that I didn't mention her at all during the synopsis of the plot. There exists a Japan-only DS version which has Shadar as the only primary antagonist. Once his story ends, the game ends. For the PS3 version, I guess Level 5 wanted to spice things up, and they introduced the character of the White Witch. But she barely does anything for most of the game until after the original ending, where she finally does something, and now there's an extra hour of the game that doesn't work all that well. Her backstory is weak, and the ending isn't as lengthy and satisfying as other Level 5 games, including this game's DS counterpart. It was very underwhelming, but it's only an issue for the last part of this game, and though she appears long before then, she still doesn't take away from the unforgettable journey this game presents to you beforehand. Does the gameplay add to or slightly diminish the quality of the story? Well, seeing as this is an RPG, you'll either be running around or fighting enemies. Now, I have no idea how to talk about simply exploring towns without sounding overly analytical, but it does essentially boil down to holding the left stick forward to move Oliver around. Wait, I just sounded overly analytical. Joking aside, it does feel very smooth and satisfying to move about, and the locations are simply enthralling to explore, thanks to some great design on Level 5's part, as well as some lovely visuals. Oh yeah, this game looks and sounds amazing, with a fantastic cel-shaded look and a wonderful score. But with Studio Ghibli supplying the art and music, I probably didn't need to state the obvious. Anyway, the locations have plenty of loot to find and side quests for you to beat, which can get you certain rewards like moving fast or having the ability to jump for the heck of it. There's a lot of missions for you to do, which are simple enough, but enjoyable, and there's even some reoccurring characters that you get to meet again throughout the adventure, which was a nice touch. As for the dungeons, or dangerous places as they're called, they can have you do certain things outside of combat, like solving puzzles or trying to get somewhere quickly. That's something I really took for granted throughout my first playthrough back in 2013, but something I appreciate now. So walking around is really enjoyable, but oh crap. Time to talk about the combat.
Let's do it!
My best analogy to describe it would be that it's turn-based combat if they threw the turn-based part out of the window. You can freely move about, defend attacks, and fight with spells or Pokemon, familiars. Some of you might know that I find turn-based combat a bit dull. Not bad or anything, just not great. This is on the entirely opposite end of the spectrum, being fast-paced, and as the game progresses and becomes harder, it can get quite thrilling. The problem with many RPGs is how do you keep the combat from becoming repetitive? There's a wide range of familiars for you to play as, who less for contend for you should you wish to have them in your party, and as the game progresses, you meet new allies who have their own unique abilities. As for Can, well, I just said what she can do, and Swain can take items from enemies, as well as open impossible to reach chests outside of combat. You can direct your allies to do certain things, but I just stick with do what you like, as they'll live longer. Another way the combat stays interesting is how the difficulty is ramped up. The first few hours are easy, but once you hit the Golden Grove, fights become more challenging and I found myself dying quite a bit. Yet I never felt I had to grind to beat a certain encounter. I always jumped back in, maybe after stocking up on HP and MP restoring items, to take down the enemy, and those tough ones can be very satisfying to finish off.
We won!
You're goddamn right we did! Of course there are times when you can get a bit sick of fighting enemies, but the game is kind enough to give you breaks throughout the story where you just walk around a bit completing activities, and I really appreciate that you can see your enemies on the map, and can thus dodge them should you wish, or sneak up behind them to get a few seconds without them attacking you. Random encounters can get really annoying in other games like Pokémon.
Get into a fight, don't get into a fight. I got into a fight.
So the fact that you can avoid having to get into combat if you're getting bored of it is really neat, and it can even become its own fun activity. That's no Kuni, a game that, for the longest time, I called my all-time favourite. I do think that the final hour is underwhelming enough to keep it from being so, but it's still in my top 5. This is a beautiful game in every sense of the word, from the story to the graphics to the music, as well as featuring addictive gameplay that's simply a blast. If you own a PS3 and love RPGs, heck, even Studio Ghibli's films, this is simply a must-have that I'll score 97%. By combining Level 5's talent for making games, as well as Studio Ghibli's knack for masterfully presented stories, we have an experience that is simply magical.